I love Bully. Out of every game I've ever played, it's probably the game I've completed the most times. I love going back to it every now and then and just replaying the game. But this time, I wanted to do something a little different. I was curious if you can complete the game without using the core mechanic that the game is based around, fighting. I've never done a challenge video, but I enjoy watching them, so I decided, why not try one for one of my favorite games of all time? So here it is. Can you beat Bully without punching? The rules are simple. I cannot punch whatsoever. No punching allowed. I am, however, allowed to grab and kick, but I cannot punch enemies in the grappled state. I'm only allowed to grab enemies to push them. No knockouts or mission fails. If I fail a single mission or get knocked out once, I have to restart the entire game over from the beginning. Humiliations are allowed. However, I won't be using them at all, so this rule really doesn't even matter. And finally, environmental takedowns are allowed. So I'm able to use things like lockers and toilets and garbage cans to put students in. However, just like humiliations, I barely use these throughout the run, so you won't see them that much. With all that being said, let's get into it. The game starts with us at the front of the school, being tasked to go to the headmaster's office. We get there, and he goes on about how bad of a kid we are, and how we need to behave, otherwise we won't have a good time here. He also lets us know that he has a very weird obsession with noses.
Remember, you will have a clean nose, so keep it clean, or we'll clean it for you.
After all of that, we're told to go to our dorm and put on our school uniform. Pretty simple stuff so far. As we get closer to the dorm, we're stopped by some mean kids who really want to show us how mean they are.
Guess what time it is?
And just like that, we're put into our first encounter. Now honestly, I don't know if this should be counted or not, as it's a tutorial. Some people would probably count this as a fail, and some people wouldn't. I'll leave that up to you to decide. At first, I'm able to avoid punching our opponent, as the game will register you doing what it's prompting you to do, regardless of if you're connecting with the attack or not. However, after that, we have to grab him and do punches in the grapple state. We only have to do it 3 times, and after that, I'm able to finish him off however I please. So I push him to the ground, and I just kick him until our next objective pops up. After getting him in the red state, we unlock the ability to humiliate our opponent. I made it a rule that I can use these, but honestly, I won't be using them that much. We go inside and we're confronted by a student named Gary, a weird kid who insists on being our friend. Despite showing obvious signs of mental illness, Jimmy accepts his offer to be friends, kinda like me with my ex-girlfriend. He shows us around, and then we go into our room and change into our uniform. It's here we meet Femboy Pete. He's kind of like our sidekick throughout the entire game. We chat with both Pete and Gary for a little bit, then we kick them out of our room. We go to our next mission, which is still just a tutorial mission for the most part. We learn about the social system, lockpicking, hiding, how to res, and how the class system works. We're forced to attend our very first class, which is biology. Ironically enough, this class is really the only one that could majorly impact how this run goes. You see, every class has 5 lessons. Each time you complete a lesson for said class, you gain a new benefit. With biology, you gain access to new weapons that you can pick up right from your dorm room. You won't really find me attending these classes though, as I'm trying to make it as difficult as possible for an already not so difficult game. From here, we head to what I consider the actual first mission of the game, Setup. In this mission, a kid named Davis shoots a slingshot at Jimmy, and Jimmy basically says he can't let that slide. We basically just have to chase him around the campus so we can give that booty a good old slapping. After a while, he reaches his friend who we have to take out. With the first enemy, I just grab him and put him in the trash can. We come across another enemy, but there's no trash cans around. So I just push him to the ground and kick him till he's done. Another enemy shows and I just do the same thing again. After that, we have to take on 2 opponents at the same time, which was a little difficult. You're probably wondering why I don't just use the firecrackers I have. I could have, but I prefer to use them later in the mission against Davis, as it takes him out pretty quickly. 2 throws and it's all over. Completing this mission gives us the slingshot, which is going to be our best friend throughout this entire run, so get used to seeing it. We go to our next mission, Slingshot, which is really just a tutorial mission for the weapon. We shoot some glass, then mow down some innocent football players, and that's the mission. We head to our next mission, Save Algie. In this mission, we have to get Algie to his locker to get some notes while protecting him from some bullies. Luckily for us, we can see our enemies from far away before they can see us, so we can already inflict damage or take them out completely before they're able to get to Algie. Along the way, he decides he has to pee, so we take him to the bathroom, and a couple more enemies show. We dump them in the toilet, and that's that. Finally, we get Algie to his locker, and that's the end of the mission. Next, we start a little help. We basically just go harass a hobo, and he tells us to get him something, and he teaches us a new move. Like I said earlier, luckily we don't have to connect with these moves for the game to register it. He can teach us moves throughout the entire game, but we can't use them, so we won't be coming back here. We still have a little time left in the day, so I decided to do one more mission before calling it. This mission is kind of similar to Save Algae. A nerd is somewhere that he shouldn't be and some bullies are trying to beat him up. The only real issue with these missions are that the people we need to defend have health bars, and they can't take very many hits, so we need to be fast when it comes to defending them. It also doesn't help that the enemies usually will only target the person we need to defend, so yeah. We take out all the enemies, the hobo that we helped earlier helps us escape, and we gain a skateboard afterwards. The skateboard plays no role in this challenge except for getting us around quicker, so that's always a plus. The next day arrives and we get straight to standing on business. When you leave your room, the game forces you into this little scene teaching you how to do errands. We literally won't be doing any of these as they're basically just side content. The next mission really isn't anything special. We just return something to a student that was stolen from her and she gives us a kiss. Now, kissing a girl will normally give you a health boost, but that's only if you attend art class, and like I said, I'm trying to make the game a lot more difficult for this run, so we won't be doing this at all outside of when the story forces us to. Next up, the candidate. This also isn't a mission that's too special. One of the nerds have to present a speech, but they're afraid that the jocks are going to try and mess it up for them. We just go to the top floor and slingshot anybody that tries to get in the way. This mission can be a little difficult as they do spawn kinda fast and you don't get a lot of time to react to them. Once he's done with his speech, all of his friends get up and cheer, and you start wondering why you even did this in the first place since only like 5 people showed up anyway. Completing this mission gives our slingshot an upgrade, which is what we're going to want for this entire run. We head back to our dorm and start one of my personal favorite missions, Halloween. Basically, all we have to do is go around and do pranks that students give us. We need to do 5 in total to complete this mission. We put a kick me sign on a student, throw eggs, cause CTE damage, throw stink grenades, and trip students with marbles. After that, we head to bed, and we're able to begin the final mission of the first chapter. In this mission, Gary seems really eager about something. He wants you to follow him, and Jimmy, being the gullible MC he is, does just that. He proceeds to pick a fight with some random bullies, so we take them out. After that, we head into the basement of the school. From here, we just do a bunch of minuscule tasks until we reach where Gary is trying to take us. After a few minutes, we reach the hole, a place where students apparently come to handle their business. It's revealed that Gary was never on our side to begin with, big surprise there, and he tricked us into coming here to face Russell.
Gary, now I hate you. I know, Russell. Go beat that little jerk who said that nasty stuff to me about your mom and those barnyard animals.
What? Come here. Russell wants vengeance.
Thus begins our first boss fight of the game. This fight isn't necessarily difficult, it's just that Russell has a lot of health and he can take some hits. I eventually run out of firecrackers, so the only thing I can rely on is my slingshot, and let me tell you, it does not do much damage at all. After a few minutes of whamming on him with it, we were able to take him down for good. Gary proceeds to go on about wanting to take over the school and how we're just in his way, and Russell suddenly realizes that bullying isn't cool. And with all of that, we officially enter Chapter 2. The first thing we do is go to shop class. Reason being, this class gives you a bike for every lesson you complete. You see, now since we're in Chapter 2, we're able to explore the town, so a bike is going to be very convenient for us to get around. I only attend the first shop class though, as I don't think we'll need the other bikes all that much. After that, we head to our next mission, character sheets. Another mission that yet again involves us helping the nerds out because they can't grow a backbone and stick up for themselves. Basically, we need to go around and get some sheets that a bunch of different bullies have and give it back to the nerd. The first one we get kicked where the sun don't shine and just have to get back up and they'll drop it. The others are all pretty simple though, we just beat them up and take the sheets off of them. After we get them all, we return them to the nerd and we're done. The next few missions aren't anything really worth speaking on. We go grocery shopping for the lunch lady, tell a midget we'll smash some gnomes for her, collect alcohol bottles so our teacher doesn't get fired, and clear out a movie theater for some preppy girl so she can be first in line. It's here where we hit our first major roadblock. Yeah, I completely forgot about this. We're forced to enter a boxing tournament where we have to take out 3 opponents, and well, it's boxing. There's really no way around it. You have to use your fists. This also isn't the only mission I recall that you have to box. You'll have to box in the final mission of this chapter as well. So yeah, with that being said, it's not like I'm not gonna put a little twist on this mission. In order to make this more difficult, I decided I could only uppercut. I know it doesn't change the fact that I'm using my fists, but well, it's the least I could do. And let me tell you, these fights are kinda challenging when you limit your moveset. All of these bouts took me 3 rounds to win, and so that's a lot longer than it usually does. You can end these guys in 1 round if you actually wanted to, but that's why I wanted to make it a little more difficult on myself. Regardless, that doesn't mean we're not going to keep playing to see how much more of the game you can complete without punching. Winning this tournament grants you a clubhouse, which you can use as a new safe place. This is great for us as I'm playing on a PC version of this game, and when I first started, I didn't know there was a bug that causes the game to crash randomly, and this happens quite a few times. There are so many moments where I lost progress due to this issue that at one point I just decided I would start saving after every mission. So if there's ever a moment where you notice the game's clock isn't really matching up with each other, it's because I had to replay certain parts due to the crashing. After that though, we have to go get some new heat, cause the preppies won't let us hang if we ain't styling like them. Finally, we can start the next mission, which is them asking us to get some eggs, then come to their house. After we arrive at their house, it turns out it was actually a setup and it's all Gary's fault. So what do you think happens?
You've been rude about Mommy. Let's get this, Papa.
Yep, we have to escape. We just have to take out the student who has the key, so we slingshot him, take the key, and we're out of there just like that. The next day we enter our first race. Pete's all by himself and we find out everyone is near the beach about to race. By everyone, they just mean some preppies and a couple girls. Yeah. The races in this game are some of the easiest things you'll ever do. You are able to attack your opponents and throw things at them, but there literally is no reason to. You're always going to be faster than them, and on the off chance they do get ahead of you, they will only go so far before the game forces them to slow down and let you catch up. If you fail a race, it's either because you fall off your bike near the end or you're actually just that bad. After we win, we're told we won a trophy and to stop by the bike shop to pick it up. This takes us directly to our next mission. We come to pick up our trophy and some random preppies come in and steal it from us. Kind of crazy for people who go on about how rich they are. We chase them to the beach and we take them out, then get our trophy back. You're actually able to just run up on him and grapple him for the trophy, but I completely forgot about that, so I did it the hard way. Next up, Tad's house. We find Russell bullying some worker and we help him out. He tells us the parents of Tad is out at a party and we should egg their house. Jimmy, being the humble and responsible teenager that he is, agrees with the plan. So we go there, we egg the house. Luckily, Russell is with us for this mission, so we really don't have to worry about fighting, because he can take them all out by himself. After we egg 6 windows, we just leave and we're done. Now for the final mission of this chapter. If you remember what I said earlier, I said that we'd have to box again in the final mission, and well, here we are. Basically, Jimmy wants to show the preppies that he's better than all of them, and him and Pete come to the conclusion that to do that, he should beat the best fighter they have, Biff. This fight was pretty difficult. It got to the point that I actually almost lost. This fight went on for so much longer than I thought it would. It took me 9 rounds to defeat him. Out of the countless times I've played this game, I've never had a boxing bout go on for that long. Luckily though, I was able to catch on to his pattern and finally beat him. Of course, our fight isn't over yet. They get mad and decide they're gonna beat us up for beating up their friend. So we take on the minions, then get to Derby, who is apparently the head honcho. This was by far the most difficult boss I faced in this challenge. The room isn't that big and he's always on your case. It's extremely difficult to get away from him. He almost even took me out completely. Luckily, I was able to figure out how to cheese his mechanics and I was able to just slingshot him till he was done for. Anyway, we take him out, Jimmy talks his talk, and then we're on to chapter 3. We start the chapter by playing darts with Pete. A greaser soon approaches us telling us that Johnny is looking for us and needs our help. Johnny is the leader of the Greasers, the clique who this chapter focuses on. Honestly, this is probably the best chapter in the game storyline wise. We actually see the leader and interact with him pretty often, which is something that other chapters fail to do. The first few missions of this chapter though are mostly just filler. We get items for the lunch lady again, throw snowballs at people for Santa, shoot some kids for the lunch lady on her date, give Santa a not so Merry Christmas, show Miss Peters why to serve first chair, help Santa take pictures of kids, and finally after all that we're able to start the actual storyline missions of the game again. Basically, Johnny is in love with a girl who's cheating on him with pretty much the whole school. In our first mission, Johnny just wants us to go find Lola and a boy she's with and take pictures of it for proof. This was pretty easy as they ended up doing all 3 things that you need to take pictures of one after another. Usually they'll do 1 or 2 then walk away for a little bit before doing the next thing. We take them back to Johnny, he throws a little hissy fit, and we start our next mission. In this mission, we want to bait the guy that Johnny's girl has been seeing to follow us to a bike park. It's there that Johnny and his boys are waiting to ambush the preppies. This leads to an all-out bike war. We have to take out the preppies, but I decided to get off my bike and just use the slingshot. It can be pretty difficult to hit opponents who are on bikes at times. After we take them all out, Johnny and his boys leave and we can head to our next mission. Now, this is where the problems with the greasers start. One of the nerds has apparently been talking to Lola, and now Johnny is looking for him. We have to help one of the other nerds who's being harassed by the greasers for Algie's location. After we save him, he tells us where Algie is. We warn him and a preppy that the greasers are after them and we need to get out of there quick. Now this part of the mission honestly had me a little worried. You see, now you're on a bike with Chad and you have to slingshot enemies until you guys reach the school. This can be difficult as they throw firecrackers at you, which do a lot of damage. A lot of the time you won't even see them before you can stop them from throwing the firecrackers. So your reaction time really needs to be good in this mission. After a while of fighting them off, we reach the school and we're finally free from them. Our next mission is tagging. It's pretty self-explanatory. We just go around the greasers' turf and tag their walls with spray paint. While this mechanic isn't really useful outside of this mission, it is cool as it seems like they took it from a game they released prior called The Warriors. It works almost the exact same way, except it's easier to trace as they do it for you. Next up is Lola's race. If you remember what I said earlier, races are some of the easiest things you can do in this game. This particular race is no different. Although I do think this race is a lot more interesting due to the fact that there are a lot of things going on. There are greasers who aren't even in the race trying to slow you down, and there are certain areas where you have to pay attention or you'll take a wrong turn or run into something coming from the distance. All in all though, it's still a pretty easy race and we finish it with flying colors. Now we go into one of the missions that I was somewhat worried about starting this challenge. In this mission, Lola has basically been kicked out by the gang, and she left some of her stuff in their hideout. For some reason, Jimmy agrees to sneak in and get her items back. I thought this mission was going to be harder because it used to give me problems as a child, but it wasn't as bad as I remember. I just slingshot everybody until we collect everything. After a certain point, you come across a big guy who has a hammer that you need to get certain items. His fight was way easier than I was expecting. I just threw stink bombs to stop him in his tracks and threw anything I had at him that could do damage. We take him out, we get the rest of Lola's items, we return them to her, and we pass. Now for the final mission of this chapter. Basically, the preppies and greasers are having an all-out war. What's the cause of this all-out war, you might ask? None other than Lola herself, who for some reason seems really proud about that. We have to find Peanut and we take him and his friends out. After that, Johnny shows up and he shows us why he should try out for the UFC. Then the cops come out of nowhere and we have to get away from them. After a little while of biking, we get to the boss fight. The whole gimmick of this boss is that we have to clear the path for Pete so he can use the crane to get Johnny off his bike. Why Pete is here, I don't know, but I mean he's helping, so I won't ask questions. After we get him off his bike, it becomes a real one-on-one fight. Just like Derby, this fight was a little scary as I did come close to losing. It wasn't necessarily to Johnny, but more by his goons that were throwing stuff at us earlier in the fight. Regardless though, it was still just another boss that suffered the same fate as the rest. We slingshot him down to his last bit of health and take him out. Jimmy does his little "I'm better than you" speech and we head on to chapter 4. Now chapter 4 is where I feel the game can actually start becoming a little challenging all around. This chapter focuses on the jocks, who are the most difficult enemies in the game in my opinion. They have a lot of health and they do crazy damage. Our first mission is us trying to get the nerds to help us, but they choose not to. Crazy, right? After all the countless things we've done for them up to this point, we asked them to help us one time and they have an issue with it. Basically, we just have to fight through them to get to their secret base that they apparently always had behind the library. Now, they don't fight you regularly like the other cliques do. The nerds use these gun type things. It really makes you wonder though why they never used these weapons up until this point in the game, but it's whatever. After taking out a good bit of them, we reach the base, and they have this turret type thing. All we have to do is shoot the red glass, and Ernest gets off the turret and goes into the base. We get on the turret and proceed to blast the door down, and the mission is complete. The thing is, this is sort of a two-part mission. Even though it said we completed the mission, we're instantly thrown into a boss fight against Ernest, who is the clique leader. This battle could have been a serious problem if you couldn't just hide behind the pillars the entire time. There's 3 phases in this fight, but the objective is always the same. The only thing is Ernest has a new move in each phase. Even then, none of them are hard to deal with. But after we take Ernest out, he becomes our homie, again I guess, and we gain a new weapon. Next up is Funhouse Fun. Some nerds are at the carnival in a haunted house, and some jocks are there to try and beat them up. Something that I never thought about is that this game takes place around 2006 from what I'm aware of, and none of the students have phones. So like, how is it that these kids are always finding this information out? The walkie-talkies maybe? I mean, I don't really think that's too far-fetched for the nerds to do. We get there and we instantly have to save them from a couple of jocks. Afterwards, we go to a security room and we basically play whack-a-mole with the jocks, but with sights. There's no way this isn't considered attempted murder, right? Next, we go through a maze and we have to find the nerds because they got lost. I swear, it feels like we're babysitting here. We didn't go through an area where we have to take out the jocks controlling these board type things and turn them off so the nerds can go through. Finally, after all of that, we escape and we've completed the mission. The next couple missions I'm not really going to talk about because they're kind of gross. Just know we have to take some pictures of a girl. Next, we start Defender of the Castle. The title is literally what this mission is. We have to defend the hideout from some angry jocks. All we do is shoot them with our weapons and then we fall back. Eventually, we have to use the turret and we just blast them until the timer runs out. I actually don't know if there's a timer or if there is a certain amount of enemies here, but that's literally all we do for this mission. Next up is Mascot, and this mission was way harder than it needed to be. Basically, we're trying to get the mascot for the football team to follow us so we can steal his outfit. Now, normally I would just go up to him and do a running attack, but I can't do that this time. So I just tried shooting him with my slingshot. The reason this was kind of difficult is because there's a lot of people on the field. The only way to manually target someone is to zoom in with the weapon, but I don't have time to do that because not only were the football players chasing me, but the prefects were too. If I got grabbed by them once, it was gonna be game over. So I literally just had to run around for like 5 minutes hoping I hit the mascot, and eventually we were able to pull it off. We lead him to the swimming pool area in the gym and this becomes a boss fight. This guy wasn't necessarily hard, he was just really tanky. He took way more shots than the other bosses have up to this point, which is crazy because he's just a regular guy in a costume. He's not a clique leader or anything, just a normal student. We eventually take him out and we get the costume off of him. The next mission was somewhat a continuation of the mission I said I wasn't going to show earlier, so I'm not going to go into detail about it as well. That brings us to the big game, which is the final mission for this chapter, and this is a pretty lengthy mission. The nerds are scattered throughout the area and they all have a specific task they want us to do. The main gimmick for this mission is the mascot outfit. Anytime someone sees us, they'll want us to do a dance. This can get annoying sometimes, but you don't have to do it that much if you know your way around the people. The first thing we do is plant a fake bomb in the football duffel bag that blows up in their face. Next, we put sticky glue on the benches. Then we pee in the drinks. Seriously, some of this stuff is really messed up and I'm sure illegal. We then throw marbles on a football field. And finally, we mess with the board that leaves a lovely message for the jocks. And with that, we enter the boss fight. Apparently, the big game is with us. I don't know who sanctioned this game, but yeah, it's literally us versus the entire football team. This boss fight is pretty easy out of everyone so far. All we have to do is run around until Ted throws a football at us. When he does, we have to make sure he misses. We then pick the ball up and throw it back at him and it blows up. Why are we playing with explosive footballs anyway? Who sanctioned this? After doing this for a while, we officially get to Ted, and all we have to do is tackle him to finish this battle. With that being done, we've officially taken over every clique in the school, but it's not over yet. We still have one more chapter left before it's all done. Well, we did it. We run the school. Every clique likes us, every girl wants us. What more could we have to do? Well, all that fame and glory is very short-lived. We start our first mission making a mark. Jimmy got a little too big-headed and decided just taking over the school wasn't enough. He wants the entire town to know who he is. So we go to the top of City Hall, the highest area in the game, and we spray a message on it. After that, we return back to our dorm. It's here we find out that something happened and now everybody is upset. This leads to us completing the mission, but every clique that we took over besides the bullies now hates us again. This leads to us doing a variety of random missions for every clique. We shoot some rats in the library for the nerds, help some kids in a wildfire in the gym, help break Johnny out of a psycho ward, and help the preppies find out who stole their trophies. It's during this mission with the preppies that we find out it's the townies who have been causing all of this trouble lately. Townies are kids who either couldn't afford to attend Bullworth or got kicked out. However, even though we have proof that they caused everything, nobody believes us. The next day comes and we find out we're being expelled from school. So that happens and we can't attend class anymore. Not like we were doing that anyway. This leads us to one of our final missions, busting in. In this mission, we need to bust into a facility. It's kind of like the townies' hideout, but we can't do it alone, so we go to Russell for help. We get there and he gives us a scooter while he drives a police motorcycle. Where he got it from, we probably shouldn't ask. We follow Russell until we get there, and when we do, it's blocked off. Russell says fuck it and goes YOLO, driving right into the facility. He ends up running away because the cops are here, and Zoe confronts us asking what we're doing. Zoe is a girl who we met in one of the earlier missions, but I didn't include it as it's not really anything special. Actually, it just got lost in the files. I don't know where the mission is, so yeah, just pretend it never happened. We have to turn the power on around the area to get to where we're trying to go, so we take out a few enemies, go through a couple puzzles, take out some more guys, and eventually we get there. From here, we have to get to Edgar, the group leader, which a good bit of this is just more of a chase. We do have to be careful here as we can get knocked out from taking fall damage. Once we get to him, it turns into a boss fight. Now, this fight is meant to be played a certain way. They have these shield type things on the wall, and you're meant to use them to combat the weapon Edgar is holding. Except, we literally don't have to at all. We can just use our weapon to take him out, so that's exactly what we do. Eventually, he will start running again, so we chase him and we get to the bottom, and this is where the real fight starts. Now, instead of using the shield, you're meant to use what Edgar is using. Except, we don't. Yeah, we just do the same thing we did earlier. After we take him out, we find out he was being manipulated by Gary, and we become best buds. This brings us to our final mission of the game, complete mayhem. Everybody has lost it, and the school is in a complete war zone. Everybody is fighting everybody, and we have to stop it. First, we have to save Russell from the factory he's been hiding out in ever since the cops were after him. This is pretty easy. We just go to where he is and we run out without getting caught by the cops. After that, we go to the school, and we basically have to fight every clique leader again. You know the drill. We just shoot our weapons at them, and we also have Russell on our side, so this isn't difficult at all. And while we are fighting the leaders, they don't have the health bars that they do in their regular boss fights. They're just seen as regular enemies here. We take out the greasers, then the jocks, then the preppies, and finally the nerds. After that, we head to the main entrance of the school, and it's here where we get busted by some prefects, but then Russell scares them off. It's here where Gary comes out and we chase him to the roof of the school. From here, it turns into a full-blown chase scene. We have to follow Gary across dangerous areas, all while he's throwing things at us that could make us fall and possibly knock us out. Once we finally get to Gary, Jimmy and Gary exchange a few words that eventually lead to them fighting. Now remember, I said earlier that the prefects busted us. When they did this, they also took our weapons. So how could I beat Gary if I don't have any weapons? Well, luckily Gary is able to be grabbed. This surprised me as most of the other bosses, you can't grab them. They'll just shove you off. So I would just grab him, push him to the ground, and kick him till the fight was over. That's it. At the end, we fall into the headmaster's office, who apparently heard the whole thing, and now he likes us again. We go outside and we're greeted by everybody that was just fighting, but now they're not. I don't know. Anyway, we get a kiss from Zoe, and that is the end of the game. So, can you complete Bully without punching? Well, unfortunately, no, due to the tutorial and the boxing minigame you're forced to do. But other than that, yeah, you can. There's 52 story missions in the game, and you're only required to punch in 3 of them. 2 if you don't count the tutorial. It's crazy how you can take a game's core mechanic away and still complete it pretty easily. With that being said, if you made it to the end of the video, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what other challenges you probably want me to do. With that being said, I'll catch you guys later, and peace.